Yeah, I was going to mention something about that, but
Yeah, it's 8:19.
And I see John, I'm going to promote him. And I just saw Matt Berger.
Yep.
Just weird. Second. All right, so the recording has started, so I think we can.
okay. Oh, wonderful.
Good morning.
Hey,
Morning.
John. So, being, Friday, September 24th, at 8:20 right now, I'm calling to order the Town of Southborough Economic Development Committee. This is being held virtually, giving all residents the opportunity to participate via Zoom if they want to. I think one of the things at new business and public comment at the end will be a determination by this committee about whether or not we want to hold our next meeting in person. So that will be coming up underneath the new business. But given that there's some people who have hard stops today, I think we're going to hop right into the agenda. The report from the chair. I haven't thought too deeply about the most recent vote by the Board of Selectmen and the Planning Board to make the zoning overlay more restrictive. I haven't had the opportunity as a full group to call everyone together to say, listen, what we are trying to do is promote economic development and promote growth in our areas that really could add to the quality of life for residents. I think one of the things that I would like to do is through the course of this meeting, get some comments from people and perhaps draft a memo to the Planning Board and Board of Selectmen, kind of identifying some of the issues that we see with the changes that they have made. It seems like through, I would say 10 versions of the zoning language, it has morphed into something that would not make it attractive to developers and would actually be a hindrance to seeing the type of development that the town would like to see. And that might come up through the course of our discussions today, as well as through the memo that I think we'd like to write. So that is just my statement off the bat. I once again would hope that we can have a good discussion about the next steps and whether or not the support of the EDC for the zoning language as it is right now could happen. So that's me right off the top. I'm sorry if I didn't have it all written out, but it's just one of the things I've been thinking about. I'm going to then turn it over to the members for any reports. Julie, I know you're a little bit closer to the downtown district zoning, so we can either have that from you now or wait until agenda item number 3, whichever you would prefer.
Yeah, I'll just throw in my 2 cents right now.
Sorry to interrupt. Do we need to do a roll call vote first?
No, Marika, thank you for catching me. What I do have to do is identify who is here and have them do that. So
Sorry.
I'm going to work yes, I know. Zoom is wonderful. I'm going to work my way around the room. If you could just acknowledge that you are here. I've got my Vice Chair, Alan Belinek.
Here.
I've got Matt Berger.
Here.
I got Michael Moorhead. I think I heard him. I've got Chris Robbins.
Here.
I got Julie Connolly.
Here.
And I've got John Wood. I don't hear.
John is muted. John?
John John is muted.
No, I couldn't unmute. I was in a dead zone. I apologize. Here.
Yeah, thank you. And Marika, thank you for catching that. It's one of the good benefits that will come along with being able to do our in-person meetings again. So Julie, if you could continue.
Sure. Thanks, Rob. And thanks to everyone who listened in and participated in the meetings, particularly this week. So as you know, this has been going on for even just this discrete zoning bylaw piece has been going on for, I think, about 2 years now, maybe a little bit more. And we have made a lot of progress. Obviously, this is something that requires compromise. We've kind of been pushing back and forth a little bit for the past year on this current draft, which it's been going on for over a year now. But I think that the two issues that are still really concerning to me in the current iteration, which has now been approved by both the planning board and the board of selectmen, and this is the version that they intend to send to town meeting as a warrant article, which, by the way, I believe it's October 5th that it needs to be submitted. So any additional changes pretty much need to happen in the next week. And again, I'm not sure what the appetite is for any more changes, but the two pieces of it that I think are still very concerning to me are, one, the FAR, which is the floor area ratio. Judy Barrett, our consultant, has recommended time and again that we, instead of using an FAR metric, we should be using a lot coverage metric. 70% is what she suggested. That seems to be in line with what a lot of other towns are doing per Judy. All of the, any town that's doing any sort of revision to zoning bylaws is switching over to this lot coverage metric, just because it's a little bit clearer and easier to understand. If you haven't seen them yet, Marika's put together some beautiful renderings showing what that means. It's exactly what it sounds like. Not more than 70% of any particular lot can be covered with either building footprint or impervious covering. So that basically means a parking lot. So it means, 30% of the space has to be sort of green space. So that all sounds reasonable to me. The planning board has been very resistant and wanting to stick with the FAR. Their argument being that the rest of the zoning bylaw outside of the downtown district still uses an FAR. For me, I don't think that's a really strong argument. We've been doing it, so we should keep doing it when there's a better way to do it. The problem is that, for months, we've been talking about a 0.35 FAR, which means the square footage of the building cannot be more than 35%. Sorry, let me say this correctly. So if it's a one-story building, it would mean that 35% of the building square footprint sorry, I'm saying this incorrectly. So if you have a parcel and it's a one-story building, 35% of the parcel is the lot coverage allowed as the building for square footprint. The problem is that as you go up, and per our new bylaw, we're allowed to go up, we're allowed to go up to 3 stories, that number gets smaller. So the square footage is a ratio of all the square footage of the building, regardless of how many stories it is, to the square footage of the land. So at 0.35, a 2-story building would only allowed to have 17.5% lot coverage. And I think a 3-story building would only be allowed to have about 11% lot coverage. The problem is that in the last planning board meeting last week, the planning board actually reduced that number to 0.3, which is even smaller. It would, in a 3-story building, result in a footprint of the building being only 9% of the lot size, which makes no sense, and to me sounds like a building would look sort of ridiculous. It'd look like a mini skyscraper if it was 3 stories high, but only could cover 9% of a lot. So especially if you're looking on a smaller 1 acre to 1.5 acre lot. So that was interesting, but that's what the planning board decided, and they would not be persuaded. And then the Board of Selectmen agreed to that lower number, the 0.30 FAR. But the new development was, as of yesterday or 2 days ago, we figured out that based on an appendix to the current zoning bylaw that's currently in effect, the current FAR allowed for the downtown district is 0.5. So what we're doing is taking a zoning law that everybody agrees is antiquated and discourages development, and we're taking one of the primary, most important metrics and lowering it by 40%. So that doesn't seem to make a lot of sense to me. However, we have not yet had the conversation with the Board of Selectmen or the Planning Board to let them know. I'm not sure who is aware of the current size and that this is such a significant decrease in that. So we have not yet had an opportunity to have that conversation. So I think we want to think about, how we proceed with that. The other piece, and I'll try to be brief, that I didn't feel comfortable with the changes was that, one of the primary objectives of the zoning bylaw was mixed use development. So we want residential mixed with office and commercial. We discussed this, we've been discussing it all along. Diversification of our housing stock is one of the town's goals, has been for many years, was part of the 2008 master plan, has been part of multiple studies that have been done through SHOPC and through the Board of Selectmen and other groups. And the benefit of it being one is that mixed use is sort of the model that every economic development agency from the federal government to the state government on down has been promoting as the sort of modern way to do things, but also makes a project more economically viable for a proponent who's coming in, who can, who's investing in a structure to have commercial mixed with, some residential units on top of it. The new restriction that the Planning Board offered and the Board of Selectmen suggested is that part of this is that the mixed use is by right. But the new version says that if more than 40% of the building is residential, then it requires special permit. So it is not by right if more than 40%. So if you even were to put in a 2-story building and have the first floor commercial and the second story be residential, assuming the square footage of the first and second stories are about the same, that would require a special permit. So that to me seems to undermine the whole point of having a by right use for mixed use. That seemed to get some traction with certain members of both the Planning Board and the Board of Selectmen. At least 1 or 2 members from each seem to understand, that doesn't really make sense. However, they all unanimously voted to allow it anyway. I'm not quite sure why, but that's where we are. It was suggested that we bring that to the floor of town meeting and try to pitch it then. I didn't think that was the right forum. I thought that the elected boards and committees should, kind of agree to that and understand that and be able to advocate for that at town meeting, but that was not the direction they chose to go. And that's the second piece that I'm sort of digging my heels into a little bit. And that's all. So whatever.
Julie, thank you. That's wonderful. I'm going to open it up to the committee. Are there any comments to Julie's report?
Yeah, I'll add a couple notes. I attended Monday as well. I share sentiments with everything that Julie had said. The one thing I'll add, I made this comment in the meeting as well, and I'll paraphrase it here for those that didn't get to see it or hear it. It just seems that this is an opportunity to apply a special set of conditions, a special set of rules for this area because it's a special area. What it seems like we're doing, in my personal opinion, is that we're trying to morph the zoning that would apply to this special area to be just like everything else in town, which completely defeats the purpose of this special area. Case in point, well, let's use FAR here because we use FAR everywhere else. This is an opportunity to move away from this antiquated metric, to try something different because this is a different kind of an area. Furthermore, it seems like we're trying to apply an FAR that's more restrictive, not even equally restrictive, but more restrictive than what's in town. And it just seems to be completely counterintuitive. I get that there's compromise. Hey, let's try to meet in the middle. We're actually shifting completely in the opposite direction. So this is what's frustrating and challenging because we're trying to find something that works for everyone. And it seems like we're landing on something that works for someone or one board in particular. And PS, that's not ours. So those are my 4 cents.
Excellent. Do I have anyone else from the committee?
Yeah. Is it okay? May I speak, Mr. Chair?
Yep. John?
I was at the meeting as well. and I agree with Alan and Julie. The other thing that troubled me a little bit is at the meeting, the other thing that they dropped down, they initially, through all these collaborative meetings we've had and different things, I thought we struck an agreement and compromise with everybody at the FAR of 35, and now at the 11th hour that gets dropped down to 30. And the other thing that bothered me was, I don't know if anybody mentioned, I went through a couple of dead zones. They dropped it down from 8 units to 3. And when they asked Mr. Mills why, he just counted on his fingers, which I thought was kind of rude. 1, 2, 3, and that's how he came up with the number. I didn't know if there was any projects in town that were 4 that he didn't like, but it just seems like they're intentionally trying to make it more restrictive, and it's too bad. It's a lot of work. I don't know how to move forward with this.
John, wonderful comments, and thank you also for bringing up the reduction of units, kind of at least on the by right stuff. But before I add my comments, anyone else from the committee?
Yeah, this is Chris here. Can you
Chris.
hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, my only thought is, how about if we get 3 contractors who do this for a living and have them give their feedback and get their insight? So
yes, that's a very good point, but and this is once again something that I'm struggling with as well. We brought in a zoning specialist, Judy Barrett, and she has given suggestions to not only us, but the planning board about how best to set up the site and how best to kind of achieve the goals of the master plan. I think one of the things that I'm especially, a little bit surprised about is the fact that the current FAR for that particular district is 0.5, and we're down at 0.3. The master plan says clearly, and I'm going to read right from it: promote growth and development within the downtown to encourage a mixed use environment. When you put more restrictions on an environment, it doesn't promote anything. It doesn't encourage it. And the fact that the FAR being suggested is so far below what is there right now seems like, at least with this particular zoning, it's not doing what Alan said, which was make it special. What it's doing is saying, we want to make it so difficult for anyone to come in and propose any type of project that we will not see anything at all. And so I think that's somewhat where a memo from the EDC, particularly hitting upon some of the points that John, Chris, Julie, and Alan made, would be useful. And I'm not sure how we go about that and when we need to have it turned around. But there are some significant issues, I believe, before we can feel secure stepping up behind this particular zoning. And that's me as the chair, and does not necessarily reflect the views of the full committee. So I think what I'd like to do is then, that was the member part of the agenda. I believe next up is the coordinator.
Thank you, Rob. If with your permission, I would just quickly want to talk about Heritage Day, which is Monday, October 11th. We plan to have a table there. I'm not sure yet what information we'll be distributing. I guess it all depends how this bylaw further, comes along. I just wanted to mention that I intend to buy a pop-up tent. I don't know if we need to vote on that. It'll cost about $200, no more than $300. I requested to use the recreation department's tent, but they no longer have one, so they advised me to purchase one, which we can use for other events as well. I would like to table my presentation because it's about 30 slides, and I know a lot of people have limited time today or are on the road. If that's okay with you.
Marika, yes, that is fine with me. And I think just for the process and make sure that everyone in the public who might watch this understands how much we support, one, getting that tent. And if the rec department doesn't have one now and we do, we're coordinators with them, we can collaborate. And, you know, if we do have one, I think it could be useful. Oh, I see a note from Alan.
Yeah, I'll read it out loud. I was just trying to
Yep.
avoid the interruption. We have a tent. I think it might be 10 by 10. I can check on the size if that's adequate for our group.
Okay.
We can save ourselves the expense, but I can follow up
Yeah, that would be good.
at lunchtime today.
All
Okay.
right, thank you.
Yeah, no, it's I definitely think if there's the opportunity for us to have a presence at events that are outdoors that would require a tent, having access to it, and Alan, thank you so much. It's a good thing because we need to be visible and we need to make sure that people understand what the benefits of economic development could be. I mean, quite honestly, with growth comes added tax revenue to the town, which helps keep residential tax rates low. So without a planning board willing to embrace some type of change, I guess we either have to come up with different plans or accept the fact that everyone's taxes are going to go up. So I would hope that we'd have some collaboration with that group and embracing some of the goals set out in the master plan. But that's where having a tent would be very useful. And I know we have hit upon this a little bit on Julie's member report about the planning board meeting and what the Board of Selectmen brought on board. The next item on the agenda is the discussion of the downtown district zoning bylaw. Does anyone else have anything more to add on that subject?
I have a question. We've referenced the master plan of 2008 multiple times in this dialogue. Just curious, is that something is that available on the town website to view? I assume the answer is yes. So thank you. And then the second question is, how frequently are those plans updated? Because 2008 was 13 years ago, so it's a reasonable time frame. That I'm just curious, is there an alternative path forward potentially that, may take more time, which we've already spent a lot, but just curious as to, is there a frequency with which those get updated by rule?
Yes, according to the state, every municipality should try to update their master plan every 10 years. And I do believe that process is ongoing right now. Marika, I noticed you have your hand raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, we still work with the 2008 master plan. The EDC also has a lot of other research that they've done in the past. In 2012, they had 2 studies done. And I guess my presentation was going to cover all of that, but it's a lot of information. It's about 30 slides. So I think we need to, I think it's very beneficial to kind of review that again. I know we had that presentation in 2019, I believe it was, but that kind of shows us why the EDC is doing the things they're doing. And like Rob said, they're currently working on the next master plan. But the main recommendations from the 2008 master plan were to basically focus on economic development in our very limited commercially zoned areas in Southborough. Just from the top of my head, we have about 9% of our land use is for commercial industrial uses. And a lot of that land is actually owned by nonprofits. So we don't get tax revenue from there. And the rest of the land, a lot of it is underutilized. And that's why the EDC is, started the whole downtown initiative, because we start with the business villages, and Route 9 are basically our main focus areas. So I have my presentation ready. I would love to do it, but I think we need to take the time to go through that and make it clear why we're doing certain things, and kind of it ties into our next projects that we've planned for the next couple of years, and the grant applications that we submitted. So that's my
I
comment.
wonder, this is Chris, I wonder if it'd be helpful if you emailed those slides to us.
Yes, I can do that. I will forward you the presentation that's currently on the website, that was given a couple of years ago. So I'll do that.
Yeah, and master plans are somewhat difficult to get everyone to coordinate on, which is kind of why they're only done about every 10 years. And in this particular case, the pandemic has not helped move it forward, but I do know that there are people working on it, and I believe the EDC has someone participating on that.
That's me.
Right now. Yep.
Do you hear me?
Yes. Yeah. I was going to say I thought it was Julie, but I didn't want to say, hey, Julie's doing it, and then not be right.
Yeah, no, that's right. It started off, Kathy Bartolini had volunteered back a few years ago when this started, and then she left the committee. So somehow I got involved. And I've reached out to a few of you this week about certain points. I have a draft that's pretty close to ready. And I will certainly circulate it to this group before it's in final form, but we're very close, actually. I don't know exactly when they plan to have it totally done, but we're definitely, I've got a working chapter. I'm just beefing up a couple sections that had some information that I've reached out to several members on this week, and I will circulate that to the group soon. And then hopefully at our next meeting, we can vote on it, but certainly feel free to provide me any suggestions or edits that you have once I circulate it.
Excellent. Julie, thanks for doing that. I know it's a long process to get the master plan updated. So next up, the approval of minutes for August 18th, 2021. And I believe, and Marika, you'll have to correct me, is that also for August 12th of 2021 as well?
Yes, so for August 12th and August 18th, but I think Claire had some comments and questions, and that's why they weren't shared. So we might have to approve them later, but I think Claire wanted to say something.
Sure.
My bad here, as I have the minutes just about done. I had an emergency yesterday that came up, just couldn't get them done. But I have a question. I looked to see there was no August 12th meeting posted on the website. So I was kind of trying to figure out what meeting this was. And actually, Marika, I'm sorry, I just discovered that yesterday. I sat down to finish up the minutes, and I wasn't able to find it. So we can deal with that. But the bottom line is I'm just about done with the August 18th minutes. And there's just a couple questions that I will send out to everybody so that you can, the questions I had on accuracy. So I will definitely have them ready and all caught up with the minutes for the next meeting, which I assume is going to be before October 5th. Do you guys have to approve the memo that's going to get sent to the Board of Selectmen?
Well, that's a question that I'm going to turn over to the previous chair, John, with a kind of question from the new chair. If we are going to send a memo, John, do we have to vote on it? Do we have to get comments from the full committee? How should we best do this in order to make sure we're following the standard that the town would want?
I would always err on the side of caution. I would take a vote and have discussion on it personally, just to be safe, because that way it can't come back as a problem. It only takes an extra couple of minutes.
Yep.
So I mean, I can start the process if you want and make a motion to send a memo to the Board of Selectmen. And we can have it
Wonderful.
seconded and then have discussion.
Okay. So, John, I see your motion to draft and send a memo to the Board of Selectmen on the zoning. Do I hear a second?
I second that.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. I'm going to walk through as I see people. Alan.
Actually, first, isn't there discussion on the motion?
Oh,
That's all right.
yeah.
I don't have any discussion.
Okay. Do I have any discussion on the memo?
Yeah, I got a couple of things. I apologize for not bringing this up earlier. So at the planning board meeting, I don't want everybody to think it was just a negative. There was some concessions that I agreed with that planning made. For anybody that wasn't there, the height was dropped from 45 to 35, and then I agreed with them doing the map. The map changed. I don't know if anybody saw that. They kept the split lots which is a little confusing, as the original business village district, and moved out. So it's actually the bylaw, just in case anybody missed it, the bylaw is written now, so you can be part of the discussion whether you approve it or not. Actually has, I believe, two districts. You have the downtown district, and then just outside of it, the split lots would stay the same as they were. And I think they had gotten rid of the CSX property. So actually, what's there now is you have two separate districts plus the regular town code. Would I be correct in that?
Yeah, that's correct, John.
Okay. That was my only comment. I just want people to understand what else was out there. That on the map, it was changed. Personally, didn't have a problem with that, but that there is there's two specific districts down there now. There's the original Business Village District, which includes a split lot, and their zoning doesn't change. And then the the downtown district. So I just wanted people to be aware of that.
Yeah,
Thanks.
John, I think that's a really good point, and I agree. And I also want to point out that, we've been at this for 2 years. Each board and committee has had multiple opportunities to make revisions. We thought we were 99% there. On Monday, way more revisions than I expected were introduced, things that were sort of new, I would say. However, in the spirit, I think some of them were actually good revisions. And I think some of them, even if they weren't my first choice, are things that I'm happy to live with in the spirit of compromise. So, out of many proposed revisions that were made on Monday, there's really only 2 or 3 that really, I think, I want to talk about. So I don't want to come across as being, overly nitpicky or overly combative. We did agree to a lot of changes, and, the ones that I'm still talking about are ones that I really just think undermine the spirit of the whole mission, which is why I'm still kind of squawking about them here. But thank you, John. That's a great point. There were a lot of good changes made as well.
The only things that really bothered me was, going down from 8 to 3. I'd even do 4. I mean, I could have compromised on it, and the 40% just didn't make sense. I didn't understand why not 50. And obviously the FAR, I thought we had agreed upon that. I thought we had already compromised down to that after numerous meetings, though, because we started, I believe, at 45, 2 or 3 years ago, and then had, numerous meetings with planning board and selectmen. I thought we all came to agreement on the 35, which I think is a decent number. But that whole 40% thing was like, wow, that makes it kind of hard. But like I just want everybody to think, this too. Marty used to say, do you want to give up the good for the great? Is this even good is what you need to think about. Does this work at all? I mean, this is just my thoughts.
Totally agree.
So.
No, and I think to add to the discussion, I think our memo should reflect some of those compromises that we as the EDC have made as part of this discussion to get to something that actually works for the development community. Because if we have this zoning and we feel proud of it, but no developer would ever come forward because it's too restrictive or they won't think about making that investment, it's a hollow victory. So I think we have to make sure that if there are those things that you brought up and Julie brought up, they have to be part of that memo. So any other discussion from people on the submission of a memo to the Board of Selectmen?
Will we see the content of the memo before it goes out, Rob? Or are we going to discuss what the content would be?
Well, that was going to be my next question to you as the former chair. What I would like to be able to do is make sure we can meet the August 5th deadline. What was that?
October 5th.
October 5th. Yeah. I want to make sure we make the October 5th deadline. And I'm not sure whether or not we'd have the opportunity to get the memo totally written and then call another meeting to go over that. What I perhaps would like to find out from you is whether or not we can, if the EDC votes to send in a memo, whether or not the EDC could vote to submit it, dependent upon the solicitation of comments from EDC members. Can that happen?
I think we can do that. I think so, but I think as long as everybody replies to just you, there can't be any discussion and we can't see anybody else's comments.
No, exactly. Yep. So maybe what I'll do is not even, if we do write a memo, send each of you individually a draft and then have you respond to me. And that way we get the comments and we can get stuff put in. So
yeah, I think that would work.
This is Chris here. Is it, when we do that, is that something that we should advise the public about?
That we're submitting a memo?
Or the content before we send it?
I think it'll be posted afterwards. You know what I mean? When we submit the letter, just like when we submit a letter to the selectmen any other time or a memo.
Okay.
You know, we can post it after the fact. And it would be public info. I suggest we send it to Board of Selectmen as well as planning.
Yep.
And, you know, I guess what I'd say is, you know, we can't support it as written, you know, and these are our issues. The FAR, we still think is too small. If these are our issues, the FAR is too small or too low. The 40% is a little low for us. We could, you know, maybe make compromises at 50 or blah, 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 blah. But I think if we just talk about what our main issues are right now, real quick, Rob, like to me, it's only those few points. I think that the bylaw is very, very close. The points to me are just the size, the FAR back to 35, where we agreed upon before. You know, the 8 down to 3 is a little bit restrictive. I mean, there's got to be some middle ground on that, I think. I mean, I would hope. And then I think that's pretty much it, you know? So maybe if we just put anybody else have any other things that they didn't like that would change, that they'd like to see change? I mean, there was we just need to make a memo saying the why, the few bullet points that we disagree with, I think. And I think if we come up with those bullet points today, we could vote on it for you to write a memo with those bullet points and send it, and that would cover us, I believe.
Okay. So then why don't we we can do that. Marenka, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, I was going to suggest the same thing. I think there are like 4 or 5, recommendations that were made by the planning board. If we can, I mean, I can share my screen with the actual bylaw. If we could go and maybe discuss what we would want to recommend, then I think we can vote on that and send a memo. And I think there's a message in the chat as well that I don't think.
I have to leave in 2 minutes. And so we have to do it. If we want a quorum vote, we need to do it pretty quickly.
Same.
All right.
I'm not trying to rush the meeting, but it's going to be a challenge.
Yeah, but I don't think you can collect information from all the committee members and then put it together without, a meeting.
I would have, how do I pull back my original motion? I really rescind my original motion, and I withdraw my original motion and make a motion to send a memo to the Board of Selectmen and Planning Board with the following reasons why we do not support the bylaw as written: the decrease in the size of the FAR, the decrease in the amount of units by right, as well as what was the other one?
The 40%.
As well as the 40%. That we could compromise. I mean, I would do 50%. I would do 4 units and the FAR back to 35 personally. But that's another discussion. We can have that after. We can just say, the bullet points of those 3 things, and would like to meet further, to see if there's any compromise.
For Chair, discussion on that?
Discussion, yes, please.
The problem is it's 8:59 now. It's 9 o'clock, and we're trying to very hastily say these are the bullets we're going to cover. And I feel if we vote on this, and in the drafting of a memo, if there's something else we want to cover, we've precluded ourselves from working into another item.
Yeah.
What I don't understand, and this is a question for open meeting, is that I get we have to surface here that we want to write a memo, but we actually have to surface through open meeting the points and the editing of that memo. Like, can't we be charged as a board to write that memo? That part is confusing to me. That the entire drafting of the process, character by character, has to be in that open forum.
We've had memos come back in open meeting questions before.
Okay. All right.
On that. So it's Aaron. I agree with you. I don't think it should be, but Aaron, the side of caution, it's come back before.
Okay.
And that's somewhat why I was asking that. So I think what I'd like to do, I think having a memo is vital for us.
Absolutely.
So Marika, I think maybe what we'll try to do is have another meeting next week, maybe even next Friday, so we have time to post the agenda. And we will have an agenda item on that, a single agenda item, which is the discussion of a draft memo. And I think what we'll do is we'll come forward with a draft with some of the points that were discussed in the discussion, and then we'll take a vote on it then and potentially add other things. That way, we're good with open meeting law. We get it before October 5th, and we get the full feedback from the committee. So, Marika, do you think we can do that?
Yeah, the only thing is, I think the last Board of Selectmen meeting is next Monday for the
planning is as well.
Yeah,
I'd like to see it out sooner than later if we could somehow. I withdraw my original motion, my second motion, and
I just need to make sure that something.
What's that? Oh, I lost everybody.
No, yeah.
Can we vote on sending a memo, voicing our concerns, and I'm just thinking we can't propose certain numbers, but basically list the items that we are concerned with, and that we don't have to basically give them new, a new FAR or number of apartments, but basically voicing that, with these recommendations, we don't believe this bylaw has the intention that it's set out to be.
Well, I'm gonna. I know Ellen needs to go, and I know Julie needs to go. And this is for John. John, can we as a committee accept a motion from somebody to have our economic development coordinator draft a memo summarizing some of our discussions and submit it to the Board of Selectmen?
Yes, I believe so.
So that sounds like a reasonable compromise that hits upon everything, right?
Does to me.
Do I have could I have someone make that motion?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, I'm gonna work my way through. Alan,
Yes.
Matthew,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes.
Julie,
Yes.
John.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. God love local politics and open meeting law. So once again, we're going to push off the administrative business because Claire is going to be getting to those soon. Do we have any unfinished business?
I think you mentioned something at the beginning. I forget now.
Oh, yes, our next meeting being in person.
Oh, yes.
Does that seem reasonable for members of the committee?
I'm okay with it.
Yeah, and if somebody can't make it, they can zoom in.
I don't know
suppose
if we're
that could
supporting.
happen, yes.
Are we supporting hybrid meetings? That I wasn't clear from Mark's message. I thought it was one or the other, but not hybrid.
Yeah, I
yeah,
think it's
I
one or
left
the
it.
other as well.
All right, that can be discussed at another time. That's just looking up an email. That's
Yeah.
not open meeting law.
Yep. So I think as the chair, I'm going to have the next one in person. On our
October
agenda,
7th. It's Thursday, October 7th at 7:30 p.m.
is that a time that works well for people?
Yes.
I can make that work.
Yes, for me, Chris.
Okay, excellent. I think it would be nice to get a chance to see people in the room. So, okay, that is the unfinished business, new business. Quickly, we do have a couple of people, well, at least one person. Is there any public comment?
No.
Nope, don't see anything like that. So, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn. Oh, sorry.
Second.
All right.
Second. Okay, roll call vote on this. We'll do it quick. Alan,
Yes.
Michael,
Yes.
Matthew,
Yes.
Chris,
Yes, and thank you to the team that has been going heads, meeting with the planning board and John, Julie, Marika, Claire, and others. Your work is well recognized and greatly appreciated. Thank you.
excellent. Julie,
Yes. And thank you,
Okay.
Chris. Thank you, Rob.
yep. John,
Yes, and thank you, everybody.
okay, wonderful. Thank you. I know it was quick. Next time in person, we'll kind of allow Marika to show her presentation. Thank you, everyone, for
Wonderful.
participating. I'll see you all
Everyone.
later.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Thank you. Okay, honey.
Oh, isn't that nice?
Time to go for that beach stroll.
Yes,
Are
I'm
you-
going.
Chris, are you taking wife